I'm a 911 dispatcher. We just solved a months-old cold case because I broke one of the rules of our office. Well, shit. I mean, I guess some rules are meant to be broken, huh? Or maybe that rule was put in place for a specific reason to prevent people like you from actually cracking some of these intentionally cold cases. Desperation has a way of narrowing your focus until only the most immediate needs remain. 6 months ago, the stack of unpaid bills on our kitchen table was growing higher with every passing week. Being newly married is supposed to be a time of excitement, but for us, it was defined by constant panic. The rent on our small apartment was due, the groceries were getting more expensive, and my wife was pregnant with our first child. So we needed a miracle, or at least a job that paid enough to keep us afloat. I am so confused as to why this context matters for how he was able to solve a freaking cold case. Maybe I guess he's getting into why he had to break a rule. Yeah, let's rock with that. Also, maybe we need to pay our 911 dispatchers a little bit more if this man was truly struggling to take care of not only just him, but his wife without any children yet. Like, whoa, imagine if they have like 3 or 4 kids. Like, good luck. Sitting across from my wife one evening, watching her meticulously budget our last $50. Been there, brother. Been there. Just without the wife part yet. Made the decision for me. I applied for every... Oh, okay. Okay, so he didn't quite have the job yet. Okay, so I don't know what 911 dispatchers are being paid. They probably still need to be paid a little bit more, but okay, I get it now. I get it. He didn't have the job yet. Available in our county. So when the acceptance letter arrived from the Emergency Communications Division, it felt like a lifeline. The starting pay for a dispatch operator was higher than anything I had ever earned, complete with dental insurance and a pension plan. Okay, maybe we need to pay them less. I take it all back. It was exactly what we needed to secure our future. The training program lasted for 3 weeks. It was a rigorous process designed to weed out anyone who panicked under pressure. Honestly, good. I've always wondered what the actual training was like for people like that. Because, like, look, I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I have heard some of like the recordings of those calls to 911 operators. Yeah. And sometimes I'm sitting there thinking, is this person qualified for this job? Is this really the best that we could get for someone handling like life or death emergency situations? Sometimes I wondered, but this guy is making me wonder a bit less. We learned the software and practiced active listening. Yo, this OP, this dude is putting commas where commas do not belong. So if I am stumbling across these paragraphs, across reading these words, it's not always my fault. Like, what is this comma doing right there? It does not belong there. The instructors constantly drilled us on maintaining an emotional distance from the callers. Yeah, that seems like it would be like one of the bare minimum requirements for what it would take to qualify to be a 911 dispatcher. Yeah. Responding with like objective pragmatism seems a lot more efficient when dealing in these life or death emergencies than I guess responding with, what would it be? Subjective emotion. Yeah, clapping it for these people. You are a router, so don't think of yourself as a savior, the shift supervisor told us on our first day. Get the address, get the details, and send the units. Do not let the callers drag you into their panic. Yeah, that's actually so important. Like these 911 operators, they have to be able to mom or dad the situation from a very pragmatic standpoint. They cannot get emotional or dragged into as they said, dragged into the panic of the caller who is freaking out probably. They must remain above it, above all the emotion, above all the panic, and be able to, speak rationally and figure out the most rational solution for every single situation. Hell yeah. Good for these supervisors. The call center was located in the basement of the municipal building. It was a vast, windowless room filled with rows of identical cubicles, each equipped with 3 computer monitors and a multi-line telephone console. Yeah, sounds like most corporate jobs I've worked, if I'm being honest with you. Except for, I will say, a lot of the companies I've worked with in the past will at least do their best to have us, yes, in cubicles, but at least have windows. Yeah, that's a good thing. We're at least able to see some sunlight if we take 5 minutes away from working our job and go and stand by the window and try to get some sunlight like a plant for, like I said, a few minutes before your supervisor, your manager, your boss comes over and scolds you for not working hard enough. The air was always cool, and the only sounds were the soft clicking of keyboards and the low murmuring of voices of operators talking to people on their worst days. To be honest, that sounds like such a stressful job. Like, I feel like in order of stressful jobs, it would go like 911 operator and then just like any type of support type job. So those are the two jobs where you are just always dealing with people on their absolute worst days. Some people are just like getting calls from people that are dealing with like, murderers and intruders and robbers and everything. And the other people are dealing with people that like, are not quite satisfied with their Airbnb. On my third week of solo shifts, the call came in. It was a Tuesday, around 3 o'clock in the morning. The room was mostly quiet, the night shift lull having settled over the dispatchers. My headset beeped, indicating an incoming line. The craziest part about all this is that he did this on his third week of solo shifts, which I'm assuming means that he was pretty new to the job still. So I guess him being a newbie is kind of one of the reasons that he might have accidentally broken a rule that I guess accidentally led to the solving of this cold case. A lot of accidents happening here, but I guess sometimes when you do think about it, the saying is true. There are only happy accidents. People say that, right? Or has that been disproved by this point? 911, what is the address of your emergency? Wait, is that how they answer the calls? 911, what is your emergency? 911, what is the address of your emergency? I thought it was 911, what is the emergency, or what is your emergency? Why would you ask for the address before like what's actually going down, right? I feel like if I were calling 911, I would want to immediately say that I'm being robbed or there's like a murder in my home before giving you the address. That just seems like what I would want to do, but maybe that's me thinking of it from like an irrational standpoint, and maybe the supervisors are actually correct in the way that they train their 911 dispatchers. I don't know, I'm just gonna stop talking. A child's voice came through the receiver. It was a girl, whispering so softly I had to press my hand against my free ear to hear her. Oh yeah, we've all been there before, doing this little number so you can hear better out this year. I've been there, brother. Please help me, she whispered. I am in the basement. It is very cold. Sweetie, I need you to tell me where you are, I said, typing a command to trace the billing address of the line. What is your house number? My dad did something awful to mommy. I actually just got the cold chills reading that. Can you imagine, first of all, not just like being this little kid calling, but the 911 dispatcher that is answering this call and just hearing some little kid whispering, telling you that they are in the basement of their home and that daddy just did something awful to mommy. That is giving me the worst type of cold chills. Yeah, I wouldn't survive apparently 3 weeks as a 911 dispatcher. As soon as I would get that call, nope, I have to move on to another job. Can't do it. Send me back to support where I'm dealing with angry Airbnb guests. My dad did something awful to mommy, the girl said. Her voice trembled, but she did not cry. She is lying on the kitchen floor and she won't wake up. He told me to go to the basement and then he locked the door from the outside. I am scared. How long does it take for them to be able to actually trace the call to a specific address? Oh my God, time would not be moving fast or slow enough if I were this 911 dispatcher. Oh, the address popped up on my center screen. It was a residence located in an older subdivision on the edge of the county. I immediately began routing the call to the sheriff's department. Is there I feel like if there, oh, he said he was on a solo shift, so there's no one else there. I was gonna say when I worked sales, I got a really big deal that was on the line. I would rope in my manager almost immediately. My manager would be able to listen to the calls. He could give me hints hey, we can offer this, that, blah, 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 blah. They could listen in. If I were this guy and I got a call in and this little kid was whispering, saying something awful happened to mommy, daddy did it, he locked me in the basement, oh, I'd be roping in my supervisor, my manager immediately. Yeah, this is no longer a one-man job. No. This is a team effort. I need everyone involved to make sure that I am not screwing everything up. I don't think I would have made it through their weeding out training process, now that I think about it. Just being honest with you, before I could hit the dispatch key, a hand dropped onto my shoulder. Looking up, I saw my shift supervisor standing behind my chair. Wait, what? I thought he was working a solo shift. So I guess even a solo shift might mean that there's one other supervisor there or something. He was a veteran dispatcher who had spent 20 years in the basement, and he was staring at my screen with a frown. The image I just created in my head of the supervisor staring over his screen with a frown, I don't know why, but I saw a Nazi, Hitler, but with no hair, a bald Hitler. Who are these characters I'm inventing for this story? Cancel the dispatch, the supervisor said. His voice was flat. What? I stared at him, my headset still filled with the sound of the girl's quiet breathing. She says her mother is unresponsive and her father locked her in the basement. I know what she said, the supervisor replied. reaching over my shoulder to click the override button on my keyboard. He routed the call to a holding queue instead of the active deputy screen. Okay, look, I might not have any training. I may have never worked in the police department. I may not know how these things work, but I do know one thing. That should not be sent to any type of holding queue. Yeah, a queue, especially one that starts with the word holding, is probably not where you want to send anything that has to do with a little kid that is in danger. And it sounds to me like daddy has her locked in a basement and he just killed or seriously injured his wife, aka the kid's mom, who is whispering on the phone because she is so terrified. Yeah, let's not put that in a holding queue. Maybe I should personally, me, Lou Hawley, should rewrite the entire book for how these things are handled. Yeah. Do I have your vote? But you are not sending anyone to that address. Why not? The senior operator sitting in the cubicle next to mine turned around in his chair. He had a look of a tired pity on his face. Okay, first of all, it does not seem like he's working as a solo shift. It sounds to me like I got it confused. Solo shift means that he was no longer in training. But there are indeed other operators there. Okay, I was thinking this was just like a weird time of night where like everyone else was like gone, like taking breaks, so they only had like one person in there. I'm thinking of like, do you know that movie where it's like, oh my god, I'm forgetting his name, the guy from Donnie Darko. He's in the movie also, like the ambulance, Southpaw. Oh my god, but there's one movie where he is just like the sole 911 operator or something like that, and he gets a call and they're like, don't tell anyone about it. I was just envisioning that this entire time. Okay, forgive me. The senior operator sitting in the cubicle next to mine turned around in his chair. He had a look of tired pity on his face. Because that house has been empty for 5 months, he said. Oh, the chills are back. Oh. The family who lived there left in the middle of the night back in winter. Nobody knows where they went. They just vanished. Then who is on the phone? I asked, looking back at the glowing line on my console. We don't know, the supervisor said, pulling a rolling chair over to my cubicle. So this is like similar to when I worked my corporate job and my manager started rolling his chair over to my cubicle when I was about to make a good sale. Similar, same, but different. No, I'm just playing. This is intense. But it is a recurring issue. We get that exact call at least once a week. The sheriff's department went out there the first 3 times. They searched the house, the yard, and the outbuildings. They even checked the crawl spaces. The place is completely abandoned. There is no one there. Oh hell no. What is this then? What is it? Is it a ghost calling? Is it like the family are they back in there for like very short periods of time and then they disappear before any police get there? Oh, hell no. That's all I know. This story keeps on giving me the cold chills, and not in a good way. Not in a good way at all. I'm sitting here alone in my apartment right now, freaking out, looking all around me like someone's watching me, even though I know damn well no one's in here. Is it a prank? I asked, the girl's soft whispers still playing in my ear. Most likely, the supervisor said, standing up. Some kid with an old burner phone that still connects to emergency services, or a neighbor playing a sick joke. Either way, it is a waste of county resources. The sheriff told us to stop routing the calls. If that address pops up, log it as a non-emergency glitch and move on to the next line. So they're thinking that like some like kid is like going to that house that whoever lived there before has vanished. And they're going to that residence so that when they call and do all this weird, creepy whispering stuff, that when the call is actually traced, the cops show up there and then I guess the pranksters are gone by then. That's a lot of effort just to mess with the police for no reason. But she sounds so real, I murmured. They always do. The senior dispatcher next to me said. You get used to it. Just hang up the phone. Okay, would you hang up the phone? I mean, I guess I would if they said that it happened several times before. I mean, yeah, I guess I would hang up the phone, yeah. Wouldn't say I'm proud of it, but that's probably what I would do. Actually, no. I think I would at least like ask the person on the call, like, is this a prank? Is this a joke? Why would you want to waste police resources on a prank? Wow. I just sat here for like 15 seconds and realized that I'm such a freaking grandpa for saying that. My God, no. My age is showing. Oh no. You get used to it. Just hang up the phone. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the disconnect key. Through the headset, I could hear the faint sound of a pipe dripping in the background of the call. It sounded incredibly close, as if the water was hitting a concrete floor right next to the microphone. I mean, damn, did the little kid have you on speakerphone or something? Jeez. Are you still there? The girl whispered. I hear something on the stairs. I swallowed hard and pressed the disconnect button. The screen went black and the line cleared. Wait, you can't just disconnect at that point. When the girl asks you if you are still there and then they say that they hear something on this, you have to at least ask a follow-up question. You have to follow up. You have to say something else to that. You have to say, what do you think's happening? Are you okay? Is this a prank? Do you think your life is in jail? You have to ask some type of follow-up to that. You can't just press the disconnect button without at least saying, we've been informed that this is a prank phone call. I'm sorry, I have to hang up. You at least have to give the little girl a heads up. Like, what if it's real? That night, I went home to our quiet apartment. My wife was already asleep, her hand resting over her slightly swollen stomach. I forgot she was pregnant for a second. I was like, damn, she must have ate a lot of food if her stomach is noticeably swollen. Woo, feel you, girl. Nah, she's just pregnant. Excuse my ignorance and my lack of memory. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, the sound of the dripping pipe echoing in my head. I tried to convince myself the supervisor was right. It was a prank. It had to be. Yeah, this guy's just trying to assure himself that he didn't just lead to the death of a child here. I feel you, man. It's probably what I would do too. But the calls did not stop. The next night, the same address flashed green on my monitor. I picked it up, hoping to hear silence or the giggling of teenagers. Please, the little girl whispered once again. Oh, hell nah. Oh, hell nah. It is so dark down here. I can hear him walking on the kitchen floor above me. He has a hammer. If this was a prank, why would this girl be going to the same address every single night just to prank phone call you? I get it that back in the day, kids really didn't have much to do, I guess, right? We would mess around, ding dong ditch, go spend hours and hours and hours just crawling through mud in a forest. I get it. I'm a millennial. We didn't have all this crazy stuff, but nowadays, kids got way too much to take up their time for this little kid to be pranking you like this. Sweetie, if this is a game, you need to stop, I said, keeping my voice low so the supervisor wouldn't hear me. The police have already been to that house. There is nobody there. I am under the stairs, she sobbed, her voice breaking for the first time. I am hiding behind the wood. Please tell them to hurry. Yeah, look. I'm being completely honest with you. I'm sending that shit through right there. I'm sending it through. I don't care what my supervisor just told me. I'm at least going to get the supervisor and telling them the newfound details that I have. Send out the sheriff one more time. Check under the stairs, behind the wood. Just do it. If there's nobody there, look, I won't answer the call anymore. You have my word, but you need to check this one more time. I logged the call as a line glitch, just as the supervisor had ordered, and hung up. Oh no, brother. Oh no. Oh no, he's not thinking for himself anymore. He's not thinking for himself. Bro, if something in your gut is telling you a specific thing, follow your gut. Follow your gut. That's something that all of us need to do more often, because our guts are certainly sometimes wrong, but also certainly sometimes, and I'd argue most of the times, telling you something. Yeah. But the guilt began to eat at me. It felt like a weight on my chest. Every night for the next 2 weeks, the line would ring, and every night the same little girl would beg for help. The consistency of her voice and the terror in her tone, with the subtle background noises of the dripping pipe, were too perfect to be a prank. Bro, how long is this little girl living underneath the stairs? Jesus. Also, who is this father that is keeping her locked up in a basement while also somehow, I guess, seemingly giving her access to a phone? That seems a little strange to me. On my day off, the curiosity became too much to bear. Without telling my wife, I got into my car and drove out to the residential district. The subdivision was old, built in the late 1970s, with large lots and mature trees. Many of the houses were well maintained, but as I drove deeper into the cul-de-sac, the properties became neglected. Yeah, see, look, this is the type of I'm trying to cuss less. This is the type of person that dies in every horror movie. Congratulations, sir. You are the first person to die in this horror movie. Well, actually, no, unfortunately, I think it was the little girl's mom, but congrats, sir, you are the second. I found the address. The house was a split-level ranch with faded gray siding. The yard was overgrown with tall weeds, and the driveway was cracked, with grass growing through the seams. A yellowed real estate agent sign sat tilted in the front lawn. The contact number was faded from the sun. Damn, they ain't playing. This house is neglected as hell. Reminds me of my parents' current house, even though they currently live there. Mom and Dad, y'all need to stop neglecting your home. Leave me a comment if your parents are doing the same thing to their house, because I feel like that is all too common. Yeah. Yep. A lot of the older generation just wanted to buy up all the real estate and then neglect their real estate. Tale as old as time. I parked on the street and walked up the concrete steps. The front door was locked, but the window next to it was dirty and bare. I pressed my face against the glass, shielding my eyes from the glare. Sir, if there is in fact a murder in that home, why are you pressing your face against the glass? Sir! The interior of the house was completely empty. I could barely see through the living room to the kitchen. There were no chairs, no tables, and no sign of life. Drywall was bare, and the linoleum on the kitchen floor was dusty. I walked around to the backyard. The grass was waist high. I reached the sliding glass door at the back of the house and pulled on the handle. It was locked, but the lock was old and loose, so I gave it a hard jerk, and the latch slipped. The door slid open with a screech. This brother's about to go inside, isn't he? Stepping inside, yep, he's going inside. Stepping inside, the air was cold and smelled of dust. My footsteps echoed loudly on the floorboards as I walked into the kitchen. I looked down at the linoleum. In case you couldn't tell, I don't know what linoleum is. I don't know how to pronounce it, and I have no idea if I'm saying it correctly. I'm sorry if I'm mistaken. There were no bloodstains. There was nothing but a thin layer of grime. Near the pantry, a wooden door stood slightly ajar. I pushed it open, revealing a flight of dark wooden stairs leading down into the basement. He's about to go down to the basement, isn't he? I pulled my phone out of my pocket, turned on the flashlight, and began to descend. Yep, he is going into the basement. The basement was unfinished. The walls were made of rough concrete blocks, and the floor was poured concrete. In the corner, a water heater sat disconnected, its copper pipes severed. A slow drip of condensation was falling from an overhead pipe, hitting the concrete floor with a steady sound. Drip, drip, drip. It was the exact sound I had heard through the headset. There's no way that this father killed his wife, locked his kid in the basement, and the kid has just been down there since, and the father fled. And that every single time someone comes to visit or check out the house or something, that this kid thinks that it's her father walking around upstairs, and the kid is still scared. But it's just like other people coming to visit the house. There's no way, right? I shined my flashlight around the room, then walked over to the wooden stairs, looking underneath them. There was nothing there but a few discarded paint cans and a layer of spider webs. I searched every corner of that basement. I knocked on the concrete walls, looking for hollow spaces, but the blocks were solid. The house was empty, and the supervisor had been right. To be fair, I thought this brother was about to get murdered in there, so I guess this is we'll take the W here. Looks like you're about to make it out alive, and I'll take that W. I left the property through the sliding door, locking it behind me, and drove home. I felt a sense of relief, but also a deep embarrassment. I had let a prank caller get under my skin so much that I had broken into an abandoned house. So I promised myself I would stop answering the calls. Yo, I bet that actually would feel weird. Like, as a man, just letting some little kid get the best of you to the point where you drive all the way out to the address and break into an abandoned house. Yeah. I would feel like my pride was like injured. Yeah, I'd feel a bit ashamed if I'm being honest with you. I get it. I get where you're coming from, man. I do. But the next night at work, the green light flashed again. Oh my God, nah. See, I'm just not even answering anymore at that point. If I already went to the house and checked it out and couldn't find anything, and I looked under the stairs, behind the wood, and there was nothing there, you're getting the FU button at this point. I stared at the screen, and the incoming address was the gray split-level house. Do not pick up, the dispatcher next to me said, noticing my hesitation. Just let it route to the automated queue. I reached out and pressed the button anyways. I had to know. 911, I said. There was no sound of a little girl whispering. There was no dripping pipe. Instead, the line was completely silent for several seconds. Why do you keep answering? A voice asked. It was a woman's voice. She sounded so tired. Who is this? I asked, my heart skipping a beat. Is this the mother? You keep picking up the phone, the woman said, ignoring my question. Oh, look, can you see? Oh, I don't know if you can. Oh, I have the cold chills again. This story's getting the best of me. I can't lie. This story's freaking me out. The others stopped answering months ago. Why do you keep listening to her? I leaned forward, pressing the headset closer to my ear. Because she is scared, I said softly, making sure my supervisor was out of earshot. Even if it is a prank or a glitch, she sounds like she needs comfort. I thought maybe if I answer, it gives her some peace. Who is this? The line was quiet for a moment. I could hear the faint sound of wind blowing through a window on the other end. How do you hear that one? If you want to comfort her, the woman said, her voice dropping to a whisper, you need to go back to the house. I was there, I said. I searched the basement. There is nothing there. You did not look closely enough, the woman said. In the basement, behind the stairs, there is a wooden partition wall. It looks like part of the foundation framing. On the third vertical stud from the left, there is a rusted steel nail driven into the wood near the floor. Pull the nail. This girl knows too damn much about the house. If I was this 911 dispatcher, I'd be like, why don't you do it? Huh? Tell me that one first before I continue this conversation, much less before I go to the house and do it myself. What is behind the wall? I asked, my hands turning cold. She is waiting for you, the woman said. Then the line went dead. I'm not going to that house. There is a negative 65% chance of me. Are you kidding me? You just gone to the house. You've been having this little kid calling you, seemingly terrified, saying they're stuck behind a wall. The cops have been there so many times. No one could ever figure out anything. The family that was there before vanished. Apparently, the husband killed the wife or something. And now you have some random creepy lady calling you saying, why do you keep on answering the phone? You did not look closely enough. Here is how to look closer in this abandoned creepy house. Hell nah. Hell nah. I sat at my desk, my mind racing. I could not focus on the rest of my shift. Every call I took after that was a blur of addresses and emergency codes. All I could think about was the third vertical stud from the left. Well, at least he's got a good memory. I'll give him that. Yeah. When my shift ended at 6 a.m, I did not go home. I drove straight back to that house. The morning sun was just beginning to rise over the trees, casting long shadows across the empty streets. The neighborhood was completely silent. I parked my car down the street from the house, walked up the driveway, and slipped through the backyard. The sliding glass door opened easily, just as it had before. Stepping into the kitchen, the stale smell of the house felt even more oppressive than before. I walked directly to the basement door, opened it, and descended the wooden stairs. Sir. I hope this brother at least has a weapon on him. Like at least a box cutter, something, a pocket knife, a screwdriver, a prison shank. I hope homie has something. Would not be me. I turned on my phone flashlight, the bright beam cutting through the gloom. I walked behind the wooden stairs. The area was cramped, filled with old paint cans and dust. The back wall of the staircase was framed with cheap pine studs, holding up a sheet of plywood that separated the understairs storage from the rest of the concrete basement. I began to count the vertical studs from the left. 1, 2, 3. I shined the light down near the concrete floor. Resting in the wood, just 2 inches above the concrete, was a large, rusted steel nail. It was driven deep, but the head of the nail was still protruding slightly. Yo, my thought would be like, why did this lady know this? And if she did know this, why had she not gone back for this child herself? Like, things are not lining up in my head, and when things are not lining up, it means unsafe. It means danger. It means something is really not right here. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small multi-tool I kept in my glove compartment. So that's the weapon that he brought with him. Great. Prepared for everything and anything, huh? Yep. I opened the pliers, gripped the head of the rusted nail, and pulled. The nail was old, the metal grating against the dry wood of the stud. I had to twist the tool, applying all of my strength, until the nail finally slipped free with a sharp rack. The moment the nail came out, the wooden partition wall shifted. The plywood sheet swung outward like a door, revealing a dark, narrow crawl space hidden directly beneath the basement stairs. Oh, he's about to crawl into a crawl space in this abandoned building behind a hidden little wooden wall. He's about to crawl through, and isn't he? He's about to go straight in. Oh my God, brother, no. Brother, no. I know he's about to do it, but brother, no. The stench that erupted from the opening was overwhelming. It was a suffocating, sweet odor of rot that made me immediately gag, dropping my phone onto the concrete. Yeah, that is probably rotting bodies. Please don't go in there. So please, look, bro, you could actually call the police at this point. Hey, this is 911 dispatcher, blah, blah, blah. Insert your name. Look, I'm here at this address. I know you guys said not to come. Wait, they wouldn't they wouldn't answer the call, would they? Because you're at that address. You got to go like a few doors down, then call the police and have them come, and then explain to them the situation of what's happening. There's a rotting smell coming from a sealed off crawl space in the basement. That is plenty of enough evidence for the cops to come over there. Brother, take your little multifaceted tool and get the hell there. But I bet he doesn't do that. I covered my nose with my shirt, my eyes watering from the fumes. I picked up the phone as my hand shaking so badly the beam danced erratically across the opening and shined the light into the crawl space. No more lights, no more anything. No, sir. You go on and you call 911. You call your place of work, please. For me, my heart, my head, my anxiety can't handle this anymore. If I'm being honest with you, I'm freaking out. The space was small, barely 4 feet high and 6 feet deep. Lying on the dirt floor of the crawl space were 2 shapes. Yeah, probably bodies. Let's connect the dots. Abandoned house, basement, hidden little crawl space in the basement, rotting smell, 2 shapes. What do we think is happening here? They were wrapped in dirty blue plastic tarps, secured with heavy silver duct tape. The plastic had been torn in places by nesting rodents, revealing the dark, leathery remains of what lay inside. Bodies. I'm calling it here, bodies. Anyone want to bet on bodies with me? Hands up. Comment if you're with me on this one. Come on. I want to see a lot of comments and a lot of smart individuals agreeing with me here, please. I moved the light to the smaller bundle. Protruding from a tear in the blue plastic was a small skeletal hand. The fingers were tiny, the bone white joints covered in dried gray tissue. Next to the hand lay a small pink plastic toy bone, its battery compartment rusted shut from the damp earth. Okay, now you get out of there. I backed away from the crawl space. Finally! Oh, bro's a genius. Survival instincts finally kicking in here. I backed away from the crawl space, stumbling over the paint cans and collapsed onto the basement floor. I vomited onto the cold concrete, my chest heaving as the reality of what I had found washed over me. The reality being bodies. Yes, what you and I already knew. We put this mystery together way before this gentleman did. I scrambled up to the wooden stairs, running out of the house into the cool morning air. I stood on the lawn, gasping for breath, then pulled out my phone. I dialed the direct line to the sheriff's office. The response was immediate. Within 15 minutes, the quiet cul-de-sac was filled with flashing red and blue lights. Deputies barricaded the driveway, and a forensic team in white suits descended into the basement. There we go. Now he's finally acting like the rest of us. Got out of there, Called the cops. Good job. Now, my question is, I'm assuming he had to walk, a few houses down from the abandoned house because don't they ignore the calls from that specific address, right? I sat on the bumper of a patrol car as the lead investigator walked over to me. He looked grim, his boots covered in dry basement dust. You are the dispatcher who called us in, right? The investigator asked, pulling out a notepad. Yes, I said, my voice hoarse. I found them in the crawl space behind the stairs. The investigator sighed, looking back at the gray split-level house. We searched this place 3 times when the family went missing back in the winter. He muttered, shaking his head. Well, clearly you did not look good enough, well enough, or you didn't have some weird, creepy mystery lady tell you exactly where to look. Wait, did they find a little girl? Who was the weird mystery lady that was calling? There are still so many unanswered questions here. We need answers quickly because I'm stressed. We checked the basement, but we never found that partition. Whoever built that whoever built that crawl space knew exactly what they were doing. They framed it to look like part of the foundation. Who was in there? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Based on the dental records we retrieved from the file, it is the mother and her 7-year-old daughter, the investigator said. Wait, hold up. So you mean to tell me that dead people were calling you? You mean to tell me that dead people were the ones that were calling you this entire time? I'm freaked out, but also at the same time, like I'm not so sure what to think right now. The cause of death appears to be blunt force trauma. It looks like they were killed upstairs in the kitchen, wrapped in those tarps and hidden in the dirt before the house was abandoned. And the father? I asked, my hands tightening around the blanket. The father is the primary suspect, the investigator said. He cleared out their bank accounts, sold their car to a scrapyard under a fake name, and disappeared after the murders. We have had a federal warrant out for him for months, as we suspected something when the family vanished. But the trail went completely cold, and we didn't even have a crime scene to prove they were dead until you found that room. How did you know to look there? The investigator asked, his eyes narrowing slightly as he looked at me. That is my question too that I need answered, but at the same time, kind of just like don't want to get into this because it's kind of creeping me out. I'm being honest with you, a little creeped out. The creepiness is creeping me. Did you have an inside information? I stared at the ground. I could not tell him about the calls or about that a dead woman had given me the instructions to find her own corpse and the remains of her child. No, I feel like it's fair to say stuff because everyone at the 911 dispatching office that you work can attest to the fact that you guys were all receiving calls and you guys thought it was prank calls because you were getting them so often. I think it's totally fair to just say the truth here, for sure. I stared at the ground. Oh, we just read that. I was doing some research on abandoned properties. I lied, my voice steady. Ooh, he's a good liar. I saw the house was on the county tax lien list, so I went inside to check the structural integrity of the basement. And I noticed the framing behind the stairs was uneven. That's why I pulled a loose nail and the wall opened. That's the biggest freaking lie. That's the biggest pile of shit I've ever heard in my life. And anyone with a freaking working brain can tell that you're lying about that. You would have been better off just telling the freaking truth that a ghost called you. That's more believable at this point. The investigator stared at me for a long moment, evaluating my face. Yeah, calling you out on your bullshit. Eventually he nodded and closed his notebook. Well, whatever the reason, you did a good thing today. At least those families have some closure now. We can finally start hunting the husband with a homicide charge. I was allowed to go home after my statement was finalized. I walked into our apartment and pulled my wife into a tight hug. I held her for a long time, listening to the steady beat of her heart, feeling the warmth of her skin. I did not tell her the details of what I had found. I just told her that I had helped the police resolve an old missing person case. So this brother just decided to keep all of this a little bit of a secret until, maybe come to Reddit here and just posting it for all of us to read, eh? I need some more closure on, the phone calls that you're receiving. I need more closure, and I'm hopeful that we get some of that closure here because I need it. I really do need it. I'm going to be thinking about this all day if you don't give me closure. I went back to work the next night. The atmosphere in the dispatch room was different. The news of the discovery had spread quickly, and the other operators were talking about the house in hushed whispers. Yeah, because wasn't everyone receiving calls that you guys all just chalked up as prank calls? But wasn't everyone receiving those calls for a long period of time? The senior dispatcher next to me looked at me with a mixture of respect and confusion. The sheriff's department is calling you a hero, he said. They said you found the bodies we all missed. I was just lucky, I said. putting on my headset. I looked down at my console. The green light on my screen was dark. The address did not flash. The calls had stopped. How would you be feeling right now if you were this guy? I would be so anxious, confused, and I think perpetually terrified, if I'm being honest with you. Yeah, for sure. The silence of the line was a relief, but it also left a strange, hollow feeling in my chest. For weeks, that little girl's voice had been the only constant in my long night shifts. Now, there was nothing but the steady, boring hum of routine emergencies. What do you mean the steady, boring hum of routine emergencies? Like, routine emergencies? That still has the word emergencies in it. How is that boring? That sounds like there's still emergencies to me. Like, terrible car accidents, robberies, terrible things happening to people. Like you said at the very beginning of this, things happening to people on their worst days. I wouldn't necessarily call that boring, but go off, King. You know, I haven't agreed with a lot of the things you've done in this story anyway, so why stop now? I worked the dispatch job for another 3 months. The pay was indeed good, allowing us to clear our debts and prepare for the arrival of our baby. We bought a crib, stocked up on diapers, and even put some money away into a savings account. The financial pressure that had almost crushed us was gone, but I never stopped thinking about the father. Every day, I checked the federal database and the sheriff's internal bulletins, looking for any update on his status. He was still out there, somewhere in the country, living under a fake name, completely free. Yeah, I get it. I think I would be thinking about that pretty often too if I were you. That would piss me off, for sure, without a doubt. I'm getting kind of pissed off thinking about it through the screen. The thought of him walking the streets while his wife and daughter lay in that dark dirt crawl space made me sick. Blech. I kept my headset on every single night, secretly hoping the line would ring, hoping the woman's voice would come back through the receiver and tell me where he was hiding. But the line remained dead. Until tonight. No, I would forever and ever and ever want that line to remain dead. Why would you, in a million years, ever want a dead person to call you? That's what I'm assuming this is, right? It is a dead person calling you? Or is there a more explainable answer as to who this was that was calling you, saying that you were under the stairs, or telling you how to, in fact, access that area under the stairs? No, I don't care who it is. I don't want the dead calling me. That's a no-go for me, Captain. Until tonight. I am writing this post for my personal laptop in the dispatch break room. My shift ended an hour ago, but I cannot bring myself to walk out to my car. My hands are still shaking as I type these words. Well, I guess that explains the random punctuation and why this was so difficult to read, honestly. Understandable now at this point. 30 minutes ago, while I was logging off my console, the auxiliary line on the supervisor's desk began to ring. The supervisor had already gone home for the night, leaving only a skeleton crew in the basement. I walked over to his desk, planning to route the call to the automated system. I picked up the receiver instead. "Emergency dispatch," I said. The line was completely silent for several seconds. Then, a familiar, flat voice came through the speaker. "They got him," the woman said. Yeah, once again, hell no. Hell to the nah, hell to the nah, 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 nah. No, thank you. "They got him," the woman said. My breath caught in my throat. "Who?" "The father," she whispered. "He was working as a night watchman at a warehouse 3 counties over." 3 counties over? That brother did not make it very far. You got to get further than that. I got to walk further than that. Oh, terrible escape. The police just walked through the gates and put the cuffs on him. He is in the back of a cruiser right now. I sat down in the supervisor's chair, a massive wave of relief washing over me. "It is over," I breathed. "He is going to prison." "Yes," the woman said. "He is. But I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For answering?" "Oh, sorry. For what?" "For answering," she said. "For listening to her when everyone else hung up. You gave her comfort when she was trapped in the dark." I felt a tear slip down my cheek. "She doesn't have to call anymore," I said. "No," the woman agreed. "She is finally asleep." So this was, in fact, dead people calling you. I am perturbed. The line clicked and the dial tone returned. I am posting this here because I need to get it out of my head before I go home to my wife and our child. I need people to know that sometimes the voices on the other end of the line are not glitches or even pranks. Sometimes They are just waiting for someone to be caring enough to finally pick up the phone and to listen. The father is in custody. The trial will begin in the fall. And for the first time in 6 months, I am going to go home and sleep without the sound of a dripping pipe echoing in my mind. Creepy as creepy can get, but I don't think I would ever sleep again if I knew that ghosts were in fact calling me, like, ever again. I seriously don't think I would sleep ever again, ever again, ever again. Is anyone else? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? I'm not feeling great. No, not at all. And as disturbed as I am by this entire story, I must say, I guess it had about as happy of an ending as you could ever hope for, given the circumstances. Good job, OP. You did something good. Now I am going to go turn on every single light in my apartment, make myself some food, and pet my dog.